Hello and welcome to the Design Your Own Magic Sweater video workshop, where you will learn how to design any type of sweater with your circular knitting machine with 22 needles. This is a beginner's friendly video workshop. I've made chapters for every step and for every skill. When you are already familiar with my videos and skills, you can easily skip the chapter so you can go faster through the workshop. For this video workshop you need a circular knitting machine with 22 needles. Whatever machine you have, it is okay. I'm using a pair of scissors, a hook. I'm using a 5.5 millimeter size, European size 5.5 millimeter. UK size is 5. And USA size, it's I size or 9. It's a crochet hook. You don't need to know how to crochet. But when you know how to crochet, you can crochet a border to your sweater if you like. Or fringe or whatever, as I will demonstrate in the last chapter of this video. So a crochet hook is needed. Of course, your yarn needle, a measuring length. This is in inches. This side is in millimeters. I'm in Europe, I'm using this side, but when you're using inches, a measure length, scrap yarn. Besides your working yarn, there is a chapter how you can calculate how much yarn you need in this video. But you also need 2 colors of scrap yarn, best contrasting from your working yarn. And you need graph paper. I'm Dutch, I don't know to pronounce it. It doesn't matter if the squares are small or big, you need that. So that's basically all you need. And then, hey yo, let's go, enjoy. One important thing to say is this type of knitting, the stretch is in the length, not in the width. So don't make your sweater too tight. Make it a bit wider because it will stretch in the length. Okay. That's it. Hey yo, let's go. Enjoy this video. When you like it, please give me a thumb up. Feel free to tip me. Read the description of the video for all kinds of interesting information. And join my channel to see more free video workshops for your circular knitting machine in whatever size you have, because I make videos in whatever size machine there is available. Have fun! Calculating how much yarn you need for your project. Our pattern is made out of squares knitted with a circular knitting machine with 22 needles. One square is 3 and 3 inches, 3 times 3 inches. That's 37 feet yarn. When you know how much pixels there is in your pattern, you multiply the amount of pixels with 37 feet yarn needed per pixel, and then you get the total amount yarn you need. This way you can find out how much yarn of every color you need about, and this is how you can calculate the yarn you need. Pixels multiply with 37 feet yarn gives you the total amount of yarn in that particular color for that amount of pixels. So, and when you want to make a pattern, now you know that 1 pixel is 3 to 3 inches, so you can calculate how big your project is going to be. For your project you have to knit tubes with the use of the 1 second scrap yarn remove method. if you don't know how to do that, see the next chapter. In that chapter, I will also demonstrate how to finish the tubes, how to close them. So if you don't know how to do that, the next chapter will explain it. You have to start and finish with the 1 second scrap yarn method. And after taking off the scrap yarn from your closed tube, you have to tuck away the yarn tail because we don't need them, by just pulling it between the layers to the inside, and you can cut it, and it's ready for the for assembling. You need to do this before assembling. So do this with all the beginning and ends of the tubes so that they are nice and clean finished off, and then you are ready for the next step. I've made paper models to explain how the pattern is built up. You can also add extra items like a hoodie or a caul, and the complete project is made from tubes, also the hoodie. Another chapter is about the other add-ons. The hoodie is been knitted 4 tubes, 8 times 17 rows with the use of scrap yarn, or 136 rows, 4 tubes. And then you join them into a hoodie. In another chapter I will demonstrate how to do that. So for the hoodie you knit 4 tubes, 8 times 17 rows, or 136 rows a tube. Then to the basic patterns. I have 2 different patterns. There is a slight difference, and they are knitted all in tubes that are joined to each other horizontally like this. And the first trick is that you can make it as long as you want, and you can add extra length by keep on joining tubes until you're okay with the length. So that's, you can always fix later when it's too short. 2 patterns, slightly different. I'm going to start explaining the first one. The tubes are used vertically in both patterns, and that's why you can add length if you like. The sleeves are also joined vertically, and this is basically how the pattern looks like when completely knitted. Tubes are knitted in blocks of 17 rows. That gives equal squares. And you can knit color blocks. I've been using 6 blocks for the front and 6 blocks for the back. And when you fold it over, they fit. I've been using different colors, but you can also knit completely solid. I have a cheat sheet for the numbers. 6 on the back and 6 on the front. Those are the numbers for my design. Of course, you close the ends of the tubes. Then over to the sleeves. For the sleeves, we knit tubes and join them with an opening for a boat neck, or to add a hoodie or a caul. I will explain later how you decide the opening, the width of the opening. But you knit tubes. I have been knitting 4 tubes, and when you fold them, they are the width of your sleeve. Maybe you like a wider sleeve, then you knit 6 tubes, and then it makes it wider. For the length, you can also decide what length you like by adding or leaving blocks of 17 rows. You even can make it sleeveless by knitting no length for the sleeves, and then you make a Spencer-like boot neck sweater without sleeves, and you can even add a caul or a hoodie to it. So, for a sleeveless version, knit short tubes that are as long as the front and the back, for the front and the back. Or you knit tubes longer to make longer sleeves. From short, you add a pair for another length and you can make them as long as you like. And this is basically the basic sweater A that you can make as long as you like by adding tubes. So you start knitting your tubes for the length. Don't forget to use the scrap yarn method and close them. Do that also with the arm tubes. For the arms you knit the amount of tubes you want, 4 or 6. Any length you like, make them the same. And for the length, you decide how many tubes you want to add for the length. And that's it. I will demonstrate how to close the opening so it's compatible with the hoodie or a cowl in another chapter. But you can also use it as a boat neck. It's brilliant and simple. The hoodie needs a specific opening, but I will demonstrate that in another chapter. Let's go to the second version. It's slightly different. It has a little split on the front. It makes a wider opening if needed. There's only one little difference in the arm tubes, where you knitted 4 in the first pattern. You knit 3 the same length in the second pattern. And 1 tube you trade for 2 half-size tubes. So you have your blocks and you divide it in 2 and make 2 half-size tubes that together will be as long as 1 tube. And those 2 half tubes makes the difference and gives the split when assembling. So 2 half tubes give 1 big tube. Here we have 4 to 6 and here we have 3 to 5. I will write it down. Same length tubes. 3 or 5. Same length. And 2 half-size tubes that together are going to be the same length. So that gives you an equal amount of tubes together. But 1 tube is splitted. And that's the difference between the 2 patterns. The only difference. The first pattern has the boat neck. And you can add a cowl or a hoodie. And the second pattern has the split. And you can still add the boat neck or the hoodie. Now I'm going to cut my graph paper into tubes, so you can see how the tubes together will form your sweater. Every block is 17 rows. In another chapter I will show you the sizes and how you can determine your size, the amount of blocks you need, how to calculate the amount of yarn. Everything is explained. This is how you build it up and how to join. There's also a chapter that explains how to join as nice as possible and as simple as possible. The length, the hoodie. So grab your graph paper and your measure lint and start designing. For the hoodie, we had to knit 4 tubes with 136 rows, or 8 times a block of 17 rows. 4 tubes for the hoodie, and the hoodie we are going to make one big panel of the 4 tubes like this. So join them along the sides, and then we will continue with adding it to our sweater, that it will become a real hooded sweater. So join the 4 tubes into one big panel. Once you joined your tubes into a big rectangular, you have to finish off the yarn tails. You fold it over like this, and then you are going to join the edges of this side like this. So you are going to join the blocks to each other, so they will also be seamless. And this side needs to be open, and then your hoodie is ready to attach to your project. Beside the boat neck, with or without the split, or the hoodie, there are 2 different options for another neckline. When you have a sweater with a split, you close the boat neck until it still is big enough to fit around your head. And then you knit a tube, the same amount of rows you need for that. And you attach the tube like this on your neckline. And then you have a sweater with something like this. Another possibility is for when you have a sweater without a split. Then you do exactly the same. You are going to close your boat neck until it still fits around your head. Then you know how much rows you need to knit a tube to fit all the way around. You close the ends of a tube that fits all the way around, like the way you closed the side of your sweater, and then you attach it on top of your sweater the way you like it. And then you have a turtleneck sweater. So you can adjust the neckline the way you like it. When you have to knit multiple blocks in the same color, it's handy to have a cheat sheet. So I made one, and you can make a print screen. One block is 17 rows, 2 blocks are 34 rows, 3 blocks are 51 rows. So I made a quick cheat sheet. You can make a print screen, and then you know when you want to knit more blocks in one color, how many rows you can knit in just that one solid color. So print screen, and let's continue. You have to knit these tubes with the use of scrap yarn. I'm going to demonstrate to you how you can add the scrap yarn and how you can remove it very quick. First, I'm going to start to knit with my scrap yarn a couple of rows. And then I'm going to change to another color of scrap yarn. I'm just cutting my yarn, putting it to the inside between the last and the first needle. And then I take another piece of scrap yarn and put it into my feeder, also between the last and the first needle. Make sure that the tails are long enough to reach the table. And knit 1 round, so every single needle has to pick the color once. I'm cutting my yarn and putting my tail between the last and the first needle, as every tail I have used. And then I'm taking my working yarn. I'm hanging a long piece of thread inside my machine because I'm going to use it to pick up my stitches and do whatever I want to do with them. I'm going to demonstrate to you how I like to close my tube. But first, you have to put your yarn between the last and the first needle. And then you are going to knit. So what have we done? We have started with scrap yarn, changed to another color and knit one round with scrap yarn. And now I'm just knitting my desired pattern. That's not interesting because that's for a special project. And now I'm finished. I'm cutting my yarn a long piece because I want to use it to close my tube. I'm taking it out of the feeder between the last and the first needle again. And then I'm going to put my scrap yarn into my feeder between the last and the first needle. And I'm going to knit one round. See, just the same place all the time between the last and the first needle. One round, so every needle just picks the yellow color in this case one time. I'm taking it out of the feeder and I'm taking another piece of scrap yarn. And I'm going to knit a couple of rounds with the scrap yarn. And after knitting a couple of rounds, there are no rules. I'm just cutting my yarn and knitting until my work drops from the machine. So I'm continue cranking when my yarn runs out until my project comes loose. Now I'm going to demonstrate how I'm going to close the tube. I'm going to close the tubes with the use of my 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. It's 5.5 millimeter. You can search for your size in your country. Tubes have two ends, the casting on and the casting off end, and we are going to start with the casting off end. I'm turning the inside to the outside and I'm going to show you the last knitted stitches with my working yarn that are captured between the scrap yarn. And when you put all those ends to the right, you will find your working yarn and you will find those two yarn tails of that single strand row. So those three ends we need. You see that the working yarn is in the middle and the yarn end closest to you goes into the first stitch we need to close the first pair. So I stick my needle through that last stitch and to the first stitch. Look, the working yarn is in the middle and those two yarn tails are coming out of those two stitches, and when you look at the rest of the stitches you will see that you can line them up easily into pairs. I'm putting my needles into all the pairs so you can see how it looks like. And this way you can see if you're doing it correct, because a tube with 22 stitches has 11 pair stitches. So I have to check if I have 11 pair. If not, I made a mistake with picking up those first pair, those first two stitches. Now I'm putting my needle into my last pair. Those are next to each other, but also in front of each other. And now I have 11 pairs. And I'm ready to close the pairs. So I'm sticking my crochet hook into that first two loops and I'm taking my working yarn, and with the hook I'm going to pull the yarn through the 2 loops. And now I've started closing my tube. I'm going to pick up the next pair, pulling the yarn through all 3 loops on my hook. From now on, I have 3 loops on my hook every time I'm going to close a pair. And I'm going to close all 11 pairs. And my last stitch, you always end with a pair. And then I'm pulling my yarn another time through that single loop, and the tube is closed. You have the scrap yarn tails on the right. I'm turning so that my working yarn is on the right, and now I'm going to pull out that single row with scrap yarn. That easy, and you can lift off the rest, and now this side of your tube, the end is closed. And now we have to close the beginning of the tube, and that first stitch is a little bit more difficult to find. The hidden stitch is easy to find, but most people make the mistake by not searching for it, so they look at the loops and they think that this stitch is the first stitch and this is the opposite stitch, but it's not. You have to look at where your scrap yarn goes through. Find the first 2 loops where the yarn ends of the scrap yarn go through, and then you will find that the piece closest to you, that stitch, is a little bit hidden. This is the first stitch and the opposite stitch, and the working yarn is in between. And when you're not sure, you are going to count your 11 pairs again. Line them up. And my last pair, you always end with a pair. And then you continue closing as we did at the end of the tube, exactly the same way. When you are getting used to this, you don't need all those needles anymore. They are just for learning purpose. And sometimes I make also a mistake and I don't end up with a pair. And when I don't end up with a pair, I made a mistake. So I have to undo the closing by just pulling out those stitches and start over again with finding the real first pair. And then you close it the same way. Hello and welcome to this quick explanation how to join tubes knitted with your circular knitting machine to each other in all possible ways. You can join side to side. You can join end to end. You do that when you want to make a infinity tube, for example. And the last possibility is end to side. So I'm going to show you all 3 ways to join them. The first variation is end to end. I will demonstrate it to you and explain it with a little drawing. I take 2 ends of my tubes and I lay them in position. We are going to use V-stitches to join the tubes to each other. When you look at your work, you will find just under the edge V-stitches. They are all in one line and just next to each other. So you have to find your V-stitches one by one. They are all in line, so it's easy to find the top one. On the other end, you are going to find also the V-stitches from the right to the left. They are also in line, so it is easy to find them. We are going to join them one by one, so make sure that you understand how to find them, and then we are going to join them to each other like this. We are going to join one V-stitch to one V-stitch. And we repeat that to the end. I'm using a contrasting color so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to find myself the V-stitches. I'm starting with the one that's just at the edge or the corner. And I'm picking it up and I'm pulling my yarn through. Then I'm going to the other end and I find my first V-stitch. This one. And I'm going to pull my yarn through also, but not all the way. Make sure you keep a space between the two pieces. And then I'm going to pick up the next V-stitch at the first end. I'm pulling my yarn through, but not all the way. And then the second V-stitch on the other end. And this is basically what we keep repeating. Picking up V-stitches on one side and on the other side. Make sure you don't pull your yarn tight and you are creating something like bars between the two pieces with your working yarn, and that's okay. Continue picking up those stitches one by one. And when you're finished or your yarn is a little bit short, you just have to pull at your yarn. And then I have to continue the last few V-stitches. And the ends are joined. And now I'm going to pull at my yarn. And you will see that the ends will be joined very nice. You can pull through your yarn all the way. I'm pulling it a little bit back because I don't need that much of yarn. Make sure the tension is right. And this is how you join the ends to each other. On the inside you have a nice ridge. And on the outside it looks as if it is knitted to each other. So when joining ends, just join the V-stitches one by one. The next joining is the joining side to side. We are going to join the sides of our tubes to each other. So I'm picking up my tubes, for example, like this. So we are going to join them in the length. I'm turning my example so it's more clear to see what I'm going to do. We are going to join the sides of our tubes. And that's very simple. I'm taking my contrasting yarn. We're going to join them like this. So when you put them like this, you will see lines with V-stitches along the edge. Again, those V-stitches. And when you line them up pretty, it looks like they're just knitted in one line. You see those V stitches, they're just one row. See it as a rail track, and you are going to follow that track. When you stick your needle in the V stitches, you will find those vertical bars, just like in a train track. And we are going to use those bars. We start joining with picking up one bar and joining it with a bar on the other side, and then we pick up pairs. We are going to pick up 2 bars at a time, just like the V stitches, but this looks a little bit different, and you end sometimes with 1 pair, but I will demonstrate. I'm going to stick my needle in the first V, and I'm going to find the bar. That's basically the back of the V stitch. It's just one, little piece of yarn. Then I'm going to stick my needle in the first V stitch on the other tube. And now I keep space in between, just as with the ends, and I'm going to stick my needle in where it came out. Those are big holes, and I'm going to pick up 2 bars at a time. Go in where you came out, pick up the next 2 bars. Make sure you get the vertical bars, the right ones, not the V stitches. Go in where you came out, pick up the next pair and pair them up. Don't pull at your yarn that it goes tight, because then you cannot see clear what you are doing. Continue picking up 2 bars at a time. Don't skip bars. Don't go under twice. Just continue following the rail track, picking up the next pair of bars. Do that as far as possible, as long as your tubes are. This might look a little bit messy, but when you pull at your yarn, your tubes will be joined seamless. Your work will look like as if it is knitted in one piece on both sides. So when you join tubes side to side, it's usable on 2 sides. It's very simple, just pair up the vertical bars under the V stitches. So this is the second option, joining sides to sides. Then we have the last option, and that's joining the end to the side. I'm going to cut my yarn. I'm going to join the end to the side. Using also the contrasting color. We want to make it look like this. So for that I make a little drawing and explanation, and then I will show you how you have to join the end to the side of a tube. That is also very simple. You already know how to find V stitches and how to find those bars, and we are going to combine them. So we are going to use the bars at the side, and we are going to use the V stitches at the end. We are picking up 1 V stitch at a time, and we are going one by one all the way. On the side we are going to pick up bars. First V stitch 1 bar, second V stitch 2 bars. First V stitch 1 bar, second V stitch 2 bars. So we are going to alternate the bars. I'm going to demonstrate picking up the first V stitch, and I'm going to pick up 1 bar, because with every first stitch I pick up 1 bar. Keep space between the tubes. I'm picking up V stitch number 2, and when I'm picking up V stitch number 2, I'm picking up 2 bars. We are working in a series of 2 V stitches, so I'm starting over. The third one is named number 1, picking up 1 bar. And the next one is number 2, and at V-stitch number 2 I have to pick up 2 bars. 1 V-stitch, 1 bar, second V-stitch, 2 bars. And continue all the way. You pick up 1 V-stitch a time and you alternate 1 bar and 2 bars. This V-stitch number 2, I have to pick up 2 bars, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, and go as far as possible. And then you just simple pull at your yarn. You can pull at whatever yarn tail you like, and your work will close nice, without wrinkles, as if it's knitted together. A little rich on the inside and on the outside, complete seamless. And this is how you join tubes with the end to the side. You join V-stitches 2 bars, alternating 1 and 2. We also know how to join the ends of the tubes to each other with the V-stitches. And now we know how to join the sides to each other by joining pairs of vertical bars, which gives a very nice seamless texture. In this part I will explain how to assemble the sleeves, the first step. When you have knitted 4 tubes the same length, you join them 2 by 2, so you have 2 panels that contains 2 tubes. When you have knitted 3 tubes the same length, you have to join it to half tubes. You start joining the same way, and when you are finished with joining the first one, you go as if nothing happens. You just start joining the second one. Keep in mind that when you use a pattern that you make sure that you do it correct. And then you end up with 2 panels, and this one is going to be with a split. So I see you back when you have joined the 2 panels this way. And then it looks like this. You have a big panel for the length, 2 panels for the sleeves, and an optional panel for the hoodie, the collar or the turtleneck. And now it's time to turn the sleeve panels into sleeves. We have to leave an opening for your head, and it depends on what you want to add, how far you are going to close the upper part of the sleeves. You start joining them from here to where you want it to stop for the opening, and on the other side exactly the same. But how do you know where to stop? A split gives a wider opening than no split. When you want to have a boat neck, the border is soft and nice, and you can make it as wide as you like. So you can make it smaller or wider depending on your preference, or do you have a split or not. When you want to add a hoodie, you need to close it to this point, because we need the space of 4 blocks to join the hoodie. So you are going to close the upper arms so far, and then we can later add the hoodie. You can add the hoodie to a split or no split part. So join the upper arms as far as you need. Time to start assembling. This is how my work looks like now. I have an opening big enough to add the hoodie later. Maybe you want to have it smaller without a hoodie, then you can simply close it further. When you have joined the tubes, I was forgotten to tell that, of course, when you knitted 6 tubes for your sleeves, you have to make the panels with the 3 tubes. But when you have finished this, we are going to close the sleeves. For that, you are going to fold it like this. And you take the piece you have knitted and joined for the body. That's the long part. I have knitted the tubes half in blocks and half in a solid color. I fold it in 2, and now I can see this is the center. I have 3 blocks on this side, 3 blocks on this side, and the rest of the blocks are the sleeves and need to be closed. So you start joining them from here to the armpit, and then you finish off the ends and you are ready for the next step. Do that at both sleeves, joining from the beginning to the armpit, and that's exactly the same as the half of your big panel that is going to be the body of your sweater. So I see you back when you have joined those sleeves, and we continue then with joining the body and maybe the hoodie. My sleeves are finished now. When they are too long, you can easily fold them over. When they are too short, you can just add another tube with blocks of 17 rows and they will fit nice. But if you want to know how to do that, you have to wait until I explain how to add the hoodie. So when the sleeves are too short, you can fix it. You don't have to unravel. The sleeves are finished. Here is the opening for the body of the sweater. I have 2 different sides, and I already have joined the tubes to into one big panel that are going to be the body of the sweater. And when you have knitted it correct, it will fit nice to the sleeves part. But before we are going to do that, we have to join the side seam. We have 1 side seam, and that's very simple and quick to do. We are going to join the ends here, and for that we are going to use the technique as demonstrated in the chapter where I demonstrate how to join tubes to each other. And now we are going to join the V-stitches to the V-stitches, and then you get a nice seam on the side. And when you have done that, you are going to join this to the upper piece the same way as you joined the tubes all the way. Then your sweater jumper is finished. When you think it's too short, you can simply knit another tube and add it, close it, and so you can make it longer, as long as you like. So let's finish off the sweater, and if you like, you can add the hoodie later. I will explain that, of course, also. But first I'm going to close the seam here and join the two pieces to each other, and then my sweater is finished. Yes, let's continue. My sweater is finished now. This is the back, but when you make a boot neck, then it looks like this. And on the front it looks like this, because there I have that little split. And then if you want to, you can add a hoodie. First you have to knit the hoodie and assemble it like this, as explained in that chapter. And then you are going to join it like this. You fold it over into a triangle. Here are the edges, and then you take the points and put them to each other. And then this is how the hoodie is going to be attached. And that fits perfectly to the opening. But we are going to join them different. This is the first time we are going to do that. We are going to join V-stitches to vertical bars. Look. V-stitches to vertical bars. So, to join the hoodie to the sweater, you start here, follow the blocks, and then you automatically go to the back, join it to the back, and you come back to the front. And then the seam will be on the inside. You finish off the yarn tails and your hoodie is finished. When you have a boat neck, a sweater with two sides like this, it's basically the same. You start in the middle, go to the corner here, back along the back side, and you come here and finish off the yarn tails, and then your sweater is finished. So enjoy making the last step, and before you know it, your sweater is finished and ready to wear. Before you are going to finish off those yarn tails, make sure that all seams are nice and even. So make sure that your project is completely flat, that there are no bunched up parts like this. Make sure that you have stretched your work, that it's completely flat and seamless joint. And then we are going to finish off those yarn tails. I will use another example. Oops. It's very simple. We have those yarn tails. We stick our needle. We stick the tail into our needle. And then we simply are going to join by sticking our needle through the two top stitches. Sometimes it's a bit uneven. You can even them just by joining them to each other. And make sure you go under two pieces of yarn aside. Otherwise you get big loops and you don't want that. And what I do, but you can knot the way you like, I like to knot by, this is the yarn tail. I like to make a little loop like this. I just fold it over, make sure that the tail going to the yarn eye is under. And then I stick my needle from the back to the front through the loop. So the loop is now around my needle, coming directly from my work, going around the needle and under itself into the eye of the needle. I pull the loop close, tight around my needle, put it to my fingers, and then stick the needle through with the yarn tail, pull, and it's closed. This is a knot I use all the time, and it won't get, it will stay. And then I just simply stick my needle between the two layers. Let it come into the one with the same color. if possible, and then pull through, and you can cut it, and it's finished. And you do that with all the yarn tails, and then you will see that your work will get more even. If you want to add another row of crochet or a border, that's possible. I will demonstrate to you in the next chapter. When you find your sleeves too short, knit one tube, and for every tube you have used, you knit one block of 17 rows. They will fit seamless to each other when you join the tube. First, the seam of the ends, the way you joined the side seam of your sweater, V-stitches to V-stitches, and then you are going to join this tube like this to this tube like this, all the way around. And for that you use this technique as demonstrated in the chapter how to join tubes. We are going to use technique 3, joining V-stitches to vertical bars. And so you can make your sleeves as long as you will. This will fit perfect. So 17 rows per tube all the way around. And so you can fix short sleeves. When you are finished, you can always crochet a border or edging or a trim to your projects. There are books available with borders and trims, but you can also find them on Google or Pinterest. There are a lot of possibilities you can add, and I'm using my 5.5 millimeter European size, 5 size UK size, or I size from the USA needle. And I'm starting to crochet in the V-stitches that you have created when closing the tubes. That's also smoothing the point where we did join the tubes to each other. We are going to crochet along the side also by just using the V-stitches that are already there. I'm going to join in the corner stitch my yarn, and now I'm going to crochet one single crochet in every V, and I'm also crochet around the yarn tail, so that's finished off direct. And I'm going to crochet single crochets all the way around, one in every V-stitch. There should be 11 per tube when you use tubes from a 22 needle circular knitting machine, but you don't have to count. As you can see, it's important to make the stitches not too tight. When you come to the next tube, just continue making single crochets in every V, as if there are no joined tubes, but it's just one tube. As you can see, it's just the same as you would get when you do normally crochet. Okay, you do that all the way around, and when you are all the way around, you can add whatever edge or trim you like, as long as it has a straight edge. Fringe, also very fun. So look for nice decorative patterns that you can add to your project. Also, when you make a cardigan or a sweater, it's nice to finish off like this. When you come at a corner, you have to go around the corner. I'm going to create a fake stitch as if I'm finishing here at the corner. So imagine that I've ended here. I'm going to crochet 2 single crochets in the same stitch. And then you go automatically around the corner and you continue crochet single crochets in every V stitch. So simple is it to go around the corner. In the corner stitch, 3 single crochets. Do this all the way around and you can stop when you have done 1 round single crochet, but you can also continue with whatever pattern you like. I like to crochet something that looks like a fan. I don't know the English name, but for that I'm going to start with a single crochet, skip 1 stitch, then 5 double crochets in the 3rd stitch, skip 1 stitch, and then 1 single crochet and repeat, skip 1 stitch, 5 double crochets in the 3rd stitch, and repeat, skip 1 single crochet. Continue this all the way around, and maybe you have to smuggle at the corners, but it's a very nice finishing of your project. I would love to see your finished project on my Instagram or Facebook page. See the description of this video for all further information how to reach me. Now you are ready for all kinds of projects with your circular knitting machine. I have more than 70 free workshops for all kinds of different projects. And all those free workshops are for different sizes machines. So check the description of this video for the link to all the workshops in just one list, and add it to your library because I'm adding constantly new projects. So stay updated and join my channel. Please give me a thumb up and feel free to tip me. Check the description of this video for all needed information and more. Stay safe, with love from Holland. Bye bye.